Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Curios Cast. This week we are talking about the Mole Man of Hackney and other notable subterranean excavations. I planned how I was going to say that, and then I just forgot a little bit.
There's just so many subterranean excavations that I can't think of the most notable ones.
There are quite a lot. So I originally was just going to talk about the Mole Man of Hackney. You see, I take it you know about the Mole Man of Hackney, George. Not
too in depth, but I've heard of it. I've heard of the phenomenon.
Yeah, and then as I was looking it up, I just sort of stumbled across a few other pretty interesting subterranean excavations. So,
all right, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and there's not a full, there's lots out there about the Mole Man of Hackney as well, and I don't think I could got a full hour out of just him either. As fascinating as he is, but so you sort of maybe heard the name, you don't really know much about it now.
I've heard the name. I think I read about a different subterranean excavation maybe last year or the year before, and then he was linked in the in the article or mentioned. So I don't really know too much about him, but yeah, I love anything with underground tunnels. And,
so do I.
I don't think I've ever read about any subterranean excavation.
You got to be mate. You got to be in the right circle.
I think we learnt about the Channel Tunnel at school.
That is technically a subterranean excavation.
Subterranean excavation, yeah. I mean,
I got really into a YouTube video of some guy who goes into old World War II bunkers in Kent. Obviously there's loads on the coast from Second World War, and even Napoleonic forts, there's loads of tunnels and shit, and he went into there's an original Channel Tunnel which was built, or they tried to build one in 1880 or something, and he managed to get in it, and it's all crumbling and shit and falling down, and obviously it's probably really dangerous to go in there. It only goes out maybe 150 metres or 200 metres or whatever.
You got far then.
But it's mental. Yeah, but I'll send you the video, Rob. I think you'll find it interesting.
Awesome, yeah. But, funnily enough, we were actually in we couldn't get into it, but today we went walking in Cobham, which is in Kent, and there's an old RAF base thing, but there's these, it's like an underground base thing where they would have stored ammo and things. But yeah, there's the gates are all padlocked and shit. You can't get into it. Yeah,
I think in fact the guy goes into Coalhouse Fort. I'm pretty sure he's got a video inside Coalhouse Fort, going down in all the tunnels.
Huh?
So I'll share it. Maybe we'll go in there for our
big up.
I'd
love to have a good old look around Coalhouse Fort. They did do open days, didn't they? Big up Coalhouse Fort. Anyway, this is not a podcast about Coalhouse Fort.
No, the Mole Man of Hackney.
Yeah, it is the Mole Man of Hackney, right? So
speaking of, just quickly, do you know where Coalhouse Fort is, Tom?
No.
Thames Estuary, mate.
Oh, it is. It's pretty close. If you cycle from Tilbury landing station where the bell rings with the fog, you can cycle along the front to Coalhouse Fort. You cycle from Tilbury Fort to Coalhouse Fort. It's a great Thames Estuary ride. Better one in mind. But no, the Mole Man of Hackney, otherwise known as William Lyttle, right?
Slightly less appealing, the second.
Willie Lyttle. Yeah. Well, he was affectionately known as the Mole Man of Hackney, right? So basically what he did, he was this dude that owned a house in Hackney, and he spent 40 years he lived there, and it turned out gradually people sort of started to realise that he was doing it, but he was basically just decided to dig tunnels underneath his house. So his thing, he said, is it's a great quote from him where he just says, I first tried to dig a wine cellar and then the cellar doubled and so on. But the idea that I dig tunnels under other people's houses is rubbish. I just have a big basement. So he was always constantly whenever every now and then as it becomes, more known and notable, people would go and try and interview him and stuff. But he was, pretty tactful in not admitting exactly what he was doing. He was always pretty secretive about it, and was just anytime someone asked, he'd be like, it's just my basement, man. What a great thing to start doing, and he just loved it. And it starts from by my reading today, it started off. It's a bit confusing. Like some people say that he bought the house in the 60s, like 1962. He lived in it from. Other people, I read another account that said he inherited it. Either way, you know, by the time you get to like the 80s, if you bought a house in the 60s in the middle of London, you probably paid fuck all for it. You know, so you can imagine there's quite a few people who would be like, what do they call it? Something rich but cash poor, like
Bohemian.
No, there's a phrase like property rich
like
but cash poor. Asset rich. Yeah, equity rich, asset rich but cash poor. You know, so it kind of seems like he didn't really have a lot of money. He definitely did an interesting job. So he grew up, he was born in Donegal in Ireland, and then he was like a civil engineer. So he's obviously an intelligent dude, which I guess gave him his like borrowing chops. He was basically, and then I don't know if he started doing this before he retired, but it's maybe after he retired. It seems, you know, but he didn't really seem to have a lot of money by that point. But I guess, you know, you got your house done and paid for, didn't need a lot of money. It sort of seems a little bit like, I don't want to be unfair to the guy if I'm mischaracterising. Just, you know, like a hoarder type existence that he had after a while, you know, and he's there's accounts of when he was a bit younger, more in like the sort of 80s. There's accounts of like people like renting space in his house, and he does say he was tunnelling by this point, but the house seems pretty habitable still because he was renting out rooms, so he obviously made a bit of money back there. But he had a wife and a daughter, which he no longer had by this point. And it's probably quite mean, really. I guess they probably just died, and he was probably quite sad and lonely after this. But, you know, being like students that lived in the flat, he said that, you know, they speculated about what happened to them, you know. But I didn't read anything else about that. I don't think there's any actual suspicion on this guy of anything. You know, they said because of why he was digging these tunnels, you know, they speculated why he was digging. Yeah. But I think that was literally this one guy that said that. As you would, as like a student living in this house with this weird dude that doesn't say anything and digs tunnels under the house and charges you cheap rent for it. But yeah, it seems he was always a bit eccentric and, you know, started to make a bit of money by renting out some of the buildings, and the neighbours would always see him doing kind of like wacky stuff, like, and he was always a bit into like reclaiming things, you know, which I guess is quite ahead of his time. Apparently he once took a billboard to like, he actually stole a billboard, really. He was like one of his neighbours said like he acquired a billboard from somewhere. He must have just nicked it to like fix a patch in his roof that was leaking or something. And he was obviously quite handy, you know, like knew how to build I mean, would you know how to build a huge excavated tunnel like under your house? Like I don't think I would.
Doubt it.
I mean, I don't know how to reinforce it.
I wouldn't exactly. I could start digging a hole, but then to actually build it he didn't fuck about. You know, they went down. So ultimately, like they reckon that they sort of surveyors and things, you know, eventually had to come in like years later, but they estimate that he cleared out like 100 cubic meters of dirt.
That's a lot.
Which is a lot, yeah. And like. It's like where did he I don't know if he like gradually like would take it places, but his house was basically eventually kind of filled with dirt, but that's not 100 but that's not 100 cubic centimeters. He must have also like
meters.
I reckon he was doing, you know, like in The Great Escape, he was just going out into the street, had it in his
pockets,
shake it out.
And
eventually there was just shit everywhere in the street.
Yeah.
And he was just going for a little stroll.
Yeah.
I see here it says that he just started putting it in rooms inside his house.
Yeah, well, eventually that must have been the case. But, like, he must have also got rid of it in other places. But
chuck it over the neighbours, like.
Yeah, probably. And someone
he also made 100 meter cubed pile as well.
Yeah. Well, there's also someone like 8 meters deep, and apparently spreading 20 meters in all directions from his house. Like 8 meters is fucking deep. That's probably the size of a. Wait, that's not the size. Yeah, that probably is the size of a house, isn't it? 8 meters, I guess, or about half the size of a house, is it?
Yeah, not for. Don't look at your house, George, because you got a stupid tall Dutch house.
Yeah.
I just think about a door. How tall is a normal door?
Size.
Like
a normal
2
door is
point
like
something meters. Because we've had this conversation before. Like we're all about probably like 1.8 meters or so. Like we're just under 2 meters. I think if you're like a 6 foot person.
Okay, well, in size of the average UK house is 76 square meters. So if he's dug out, so he's dug over a house out of his, out of below in the tunnels, which goes, I can't find the height, but UK house. I know I could just type in height. I typed size, which is obviously going to give me the square meterage.
So it says, the
10
average
feet, 3
room
meters
is floor to ceiling 2.2 meters.
Yeah, a story 3 meters. So 6 meters, say it's about the size of a house he dug down. Yeah.
Pretty decent.
Yeah,
did he fill it with anything? Like, did he set up a little games room or whatever, or like
no, not really.
Man cave? Really.
Yeah, he would reinforce it with like concrete. So like there's all like there's some weird ass pictures of like he kind of just filled it with crap. So there's like bits he'd put like old fridges and things, and apparently ultimately like I don't understand this, but they reckon when they cleared it all out, they cleared out like cars and like scraps of a boat. I don't know whether that was just in the general property or whether he's like it implies in one of the things I read that like he got this shit down the fucking tunnels, like bits of boat, bits of car, like maybe he took them all apart. But there's pictures of him. So there was an artist who managed to get down there and take pictures of it at one point. I wrote her name down.
Yeah, I kind of want to know, like, is it like a tunnel that, is it like a, I guess like a downwards tunnel that like you use a ladder to get down, or is it just like he dug a hole that gradually gets lower and lower?
He probably just built it out of his cellar and then built different layers, because it says it went down different levels. So yeah, I guess there was like bits where he just dug down and then dig like another shaft, and then it just opened up into
the thing is, no one really knows. So like
it's weird though. So do they still exist, the tunnels, or have they all been filled in?
No, this is not like this is ancient history, right? This is
he died
70 years ago.
He died in 2010. So it's very current history. So I found. So basically, there was an artist lady. So once it became popular, there was always sort of people trying to get in and interview him and stuff. And he was very secretive about it. But he once let this artist lady go in and take some photos. He later ended up being like quite fucking brutal and sexist to her apparently, and quite aggressive. So it was around 2006 she went in there.
Why has he got to ruin it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, look at these. So there's some pictures of it in there, but she, you ain't going to go. So you go in this aggressive, fucking sexist, weird, kind of eccentric old man, and you go look at these tunnels. You ain't digging too far, are you? Let's be honest. Like, she probably went in a bit, and then he's like, keep going down there. You'd be like, nah, I'm all right. But you can see there's one where he's like.
Karen Russo.
Yeah, Karen Russo is her name. KarenRusso.co.uk. You can see these pictures. Gallery /47 for anyone who wants to have a look. You can see there's one picture where he's stacked up like an upside down bathtub and like a fridge. Like, mate, a fridge is fucking heavy to lift up there. There's also a sink on the wall there. So I don't know whether this was like originally an underground. This is the start of it, maybe, and he's had to I don't know, or he eventually.
This must be the start of it, like the part that was actually the house. Like there's proper brickwork and a sink. So this must be the basement, the cellar.
But then you go down a bit, and there's a bit where they say he built like steps in apparently. So there's bits where there's like steps in that, and he did that. I'd quite like to see this. Apparently, it was on display at Paradise Road Gallery. I guess it's not like a permanent display.
What, those pictures? Those pictures,
yeah. It's a shame. I'd like to see if they were. There's like a bottom one. You can sort of see this creepy. There's clearly a tunnel below, and there's clearly a tunnel going in, but it's just like a mess. It looks like almost like a bomb's gone off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And like a very disarray building site at best, or like trying to rebuild a bomb site. But there's just random stuff. That's what's weird about it. There's like cables. I guess the cables maybe are lights, but there's just like crates of things, and it doesn't look overly safe, does it?
No.
and bits of wheels and old buckets that I guess he's used to carry like a sofa in one of them. But yeah, apparently she says, there's like a quote from her at the end, like, my encounter with this eccentric and aggressive man ended in violence against me, and I subsequently decided to end the project. However, the photographic record I was left with provides a tantalising glimpse into the inaccessible world of the unconscious and raises intriguing questions about the relationship between artist and subject and the elusiveness of the documentary process itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she obviously has some fairly artistic take on the whole.
Yeah, she's like, she's also sort of linked his obsession with tunnels as being the ultimate Freudian manifestation.
Yeah, so I see about that. It's a bit. I wasn't sure about that take. That's a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, he was extremely racist, misogynistic, and paranoid, and was only interested in talking about my sex life, his elusive subterranean behaviour. Like
Basically, a dirty old man. Yeah.
In many ways, like that of an actual mole.
Oh.
Like those moles from that fucking Christmas thing. That cunty old mole.
Oh yeah,
who just wanted to basically marry this young girl that was a human girl that was shrunk down, and he just wanted to marry her and take it. And even though he was like 60 odd, yeah, maybe they based that fucker. This is the real life mole from the Hansel and Gretel story, because it's not actually from that Christmas film, is it? It's the Hansel and Gretel story, but deep. Anyway, I just found a whole new level to this. Levels. Subterranean levels to this. But yeah, like, so he was doing this for years, right? And he was mostly sort of going unnoticed for a while, but eventually the neighbours started to, know that they must have always known he was a slightly eccentric man. The house was kind of falling into disrepair a bit, and they would, you notice shit like that. Especially it's always quite a standalone, quite a standout rather, property on the street, because it's on its own, it's fully detached, and it's got quite a bit of space around it, which in London is especially in the middle of Hackney, is quite a rarity.
Yeah.
And you see, if you look on like Google Street View and stuff, the rest of the houses, even then, were not like that. And it kind of goes back to that, whether he bought it or was handed it down in the 60s and then just held onto it. Ultimately ended up being auctioned off for 1.2 million, the property. This was after he died, but he must have been around that for, while he was alive. It was only like 3 years after he died, I think it got sold off. Maybe not even that. So he was sort of living in squalor, for want of a better way. He wasn't really living there. And apparently when they went in there afterwards, there was all signs of like you did, you said, was he using it for anything? There were signs of like living areas. And I read in one article that it said about like some aptly titled books like Journey to the Centre of the Earth and things. So he obviously had an interest in exploration and things like that. I guess you would.
Fucker.
Yeah. I guess you'd have to be well into it. But yeah, but eventually like neighbours started complaining. And there's a quote from one of his neighbours, lived just a couple of houses down, would always joke he'd expect to come in tunnelling up through the kitchen floor. But they were always complaining because they were worried, it was making everything structurally unsafe. Is he tunnelling under our house?
Yeah, I wonder if you'd hear him, like if he was probably going under your house, especially if he went, it said 20 metres wide.
Yeah. He must have gone under some people's houses, yeah. Well, apparently, like it really started to come to the council's attention when a few like sinkholes and shit started happening. So, like, eventually he was like close enough to, don't know what he's doing. Yeah. Like, bits of the street collapsed, and at one point they rerouted a bus. The first, actually, I got to shout out Sandra from the folk club. I actually found out about this whole thing because Sandra from the folk club that I go to, yes, I go to a local folk club, was just shared a thing about it. But in the thing that she shared, it said that a double-decker bus fell down like a sinkhole, which is not true. The council actually rerouted the bus route because they were worried about it driving down the road that he'd been excavating.
Yeah.
They're worried about it collapsing. But he did at one point cut through a power line and cut the power to the whole street, apparently, or like half the street. And it was like stuff like this that the council eventually were like, no, we need to sort this out. And they evicted him. And what they temporarily rehomed him initially. They put him up in another place, and then said they were going to go in and like fill all the holes. and they were going to charge him like $100,000 to do this. They're going to fill it all with like concrete, basically pump all the things through somehow. He then like kept like sneaking back into it. They put all these like fencing around and stuff, to keep out people exploring. I was thinking, I bet people got in and explored. Like, there's no way some kids didn't get in. And he eventually got in through a hole in the wall. By this time, he's like in his 70s. So like, if he managed to get in through this hole in the gate, some kids fucking got in and went down and looked in those tunnels. Like, they definitely did. And when I was thinking about that, it actually made me think of a subterranean excavation local to me and Grays that we used to go to, which I still don't really know what it was. I'm pretty sure it's padlocked up now. But when we were younger, there's like, it was definitely some sort of, I say it's definitely, I assume it was some sort of army war-based thing. So there was these woods near us called Badger's Dean, and there was a tunnel that you could just get in. So like there was like a fence, but as long as I remember, it was open. Like it maybe once upon a time it'd been padlocked, but the padlock had been long since been cut, and you could just open it and you could go in there, and we would like, dare each other to sort of get in certain way. We were young kids, be like, oh, fucking it's the ghost part, But like eventually when we, got a bit older and decided to go in a bit further, you walk down this tunnel and it got to this open clearing of like this sort of room. And now, like, as I was thinking about this today, I was more and more thinking like, you take it for granted a little bit when you're younger, like, oh, this is like room cave thing that we explore in the woods. But now I'm thinking about it, I was like, that was really weird. Like what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And then you went around a corner and there was like a bit where there was like a sort of bed frame, like a sort of burnt out kind of bed frame. And I don't know whether that was had since been put there by maybe a homeless person that would decided to live in it, or just that was an old thing that maybe it was an air raid shelter at some point, or
that's pretty cool.
That's weird.
Yeah, never known what it was, and
must have been
eventually
so creepy as a kid. Like
super creepy as a kid. And I remember like never the amount of times that we dared each other to sort of go in it and never really getting that far. Barely getting down the fucking thing. And but we wouldn't have had torches or nothing either. You take it for granted, you got a torch on your phone now. Like the first time we sort of found it, like. Maybe it was locked, or you could squeeze through even, or something, and then like getting down with ground worker Steve, meaning we were like, God, I dare you get down there, and then
that's where his love for ground working began.
Yeah, I remember once we like told our friends like this lie that that we'd had gone down there, and then like we found there was like a guy in there, and he tried to grab us, and Steve had to slash him with a knife, and we got away. I wonder if there might be a friend somewhere that still believes that to be true.
Yeah, still retells that story every time he drives past.
My friends once. Yeah, and I remember eventually like we got a little bit older, and then we'd go back with like a torch, like specifically bring a torch to go explore. Should we go to the tunnel? Yeah,
like Stranger Things or something.
Yeah,
like,
and then,
a group of kids with your rucksacks full of torches and
proper a radio to like radio the guy who waited outside. And then eventually I remember doing it like one time around Christmas. I remember we went back to the Christmas bazaar afterwards. I don't know, I remember that. But yeah, we went in, and it was like there were like candles and shit around, which in hindsight was probably just people who decided to go hang out in there. Older kids that weren't scared of a tunnel, probably get high and drink or whatever. But we remember we were thinking, there's like rituals in the candles, or I don't know. But anyway, subterranean. That's a subterranean excavation I remember. I'm gonna have to try and find out what that was. I'm assuming.
Go back there.
Just looking up to see if it's still there, because if you can find it online, because I know there's a website called Atlas Obscura, which there's always like things on there, like weird little like old bits of architecture that are sort of underground, that are hidden and stuff like that, and people for some reason put them all on there, like urban explorers.
I know,
so it might be on there.
I know Turkish Glenn will be loving this section as well, because I know like I've been in it with him as well, like as slightly older young adults, and we did a bit of a film for uni,
like 29.
Yeah, like not like probably like 18, like definitely older, and we put up the gate from that in this film. film. I think it was Shoot Down the Planes to Make More Room for the Birds, which was a much better name than it was anything else. Like nothing else really happened. I dreamt it once. I woke up in the morning and wrote it down. Shoot down the planes to make more.
I don't know what to say to that. I can't even take the piss. You just taking the piss out yourself.
Oh, I loved it. I'll try and find a link just for you guys to see it. Nothing really happened in it, but the gate from that building was in that film. I'm pretty sure it was in there. Anyway, where was I with fucking Mole Man of Hackney? Oh yeah, so eventually they after like trying to kick him out temporarily to fill these tunnels, he kept getting back in and shit like that. Then I think he did something else. I can't remember what he did. And they were just like, "No, I've had it. You know, like you're done." They're already ordering him $100,000 at this point to pay for this work. Eventually, they moved him out, at the council's expense to like a 4th story or 6th story flat, which after he died, so he died like 3 years after they moved him out. Yeah. Turned out he'd like tried to tunnel and stuff there. he'd like tunneled through the walls or something. He'd done a bit of tunneling and like something weird. But yeah, they eventually sold it for 1.2 million to some to like an artist lady. A nice couple, I should say, but it was she still lives there. I think she's split up. Sue Webster, and she bought it and worked with like an architect, and I mean it won like House of the Year. Apparently, it does look fucking sick. But she kept on the outside it looking. She said she wanted to look like a fucked up bunker. She's well arty, like proper Hackney artist. Clearly must have got like hangs out with like Tracy Emin and shit, like high art, like well, she must have hired to buy 1.2 fucking million house off being an artist. Let me send the link to an article about her. But there's just some cool pictures of the house in this, like what it looks like. I say now, whenever that was after she bought it. There's some good ones in this one as well. Actually, this is like an architecture article I found about it. And they kept a few of like the original steps from it and stuff, like the steps that he made. Apparently, they would have made them right. But the house was all sort of falling down the face of it. They took the roof off, flattened the roof, but they kept a lot of the sort of fucked up kind of brickwork that he'd sort of made. And now it's like a live/work space, proper trendy artist space, worth way more than 1.2 million, I imagine now. The detached, massive house in Hackney.
Yeah, it looks fucking nice.
It looks fucking well nice, doesn't it?
It's a shame that it's been, hacknified though.
Gentrified out of it, yeah, mate. Yeah. Fuck, he wouldn't be able to live there anymore, would he? There was at one point, I think it was before she bought it, someone had like put like a joke kind of blue, like a fake blue plaque, like the blue plaques that they put on like Shakespeare's house. Someone had put one like the Mole Man of Hackney lived here, but if I was her, I'd have had that on there. Like, why not?
Yeah, I went out with a girl who had one of them on her house.
Really, an actual legit one?
Yeah,
an Mole Man lived there.
No, I can't remember who it was though. It was like an old duke or something. It was a big, like old, fancy house in Rochester near you, Rob.
Well, big up Rochester.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, that's basically the Mole Man of Hackney. I've got to say, like you did, I did watch a pretty sick video on it. I was trying to find. I did get it up as you were chatting. As you reminded me to big up my references.
Got to give our big ups.
Yeah, well, I read a lot in an article by The Guardian. But I also
big ups to The Guardian. Go subscribe to The Guardian.
There's a sick video by Late Night Stories.
To Late Night Stories.
Yeah, it's a decent video where the guy like narrates it really well, the whole story of it. And they got quite a few subscribers, but only really like 6 videos. It seems like he went through a phase of doing it, maybe during lockdown, and then stopped putting them out. But there's but that was one of his videos. Pretty cool. But then that sort of led me onto a little bit of a rabbit hole of, oh, pun intended,
mole hole.
A mole hole. To read about a couple of other famous in inverted commas, tunnelers or tunnels. One I found like this guy was like referenced as an early, mole man, an early mole man. His name was Dr. Harrison Gray Dyer. Dyer. He was a Smithsonian Institution moth expert. So from like the 1930s.
It's a pretty niche role there.
He's a fucking niche role, isn't it? In the Smithsonian, the moth expert.
I wanted to be one of them when I was a kid.
Did you actually?
Smithsonian moth expert. Yeah.
But I do like moths, to be fair.
Moths are pretty sick, mate. Yeah,
they're fine.
They're all right. Moths. In the Isle of Wight once, we stayed in the Isle of Wight, and there was a fuck off moth in the garden. Big cunt. Yeah, I remember that.
I was when I was at Glastonbury watching The Cure. We were like standing pretty far at the back, and there was this couple standing in front of us, and this moth came and landed on the guy in front of me's hat, like it was just sitting on his hat, and it was huge. I mean, my mates looked at each other and went, "Look at the size of that moth." It was there for about 2 hours. Like the Cure were on for like a really long time, and the guy was standing like directly in front of me, so I was kind of like. I was half watching The Cure, half watching this moth on the guy's head. And it'd move about every now and then, like have a little walk, but it mostly just stayed on his hat. And I remember it wasn't until I sort of like poked my mate and was like, that moth's still there. And they were like, what the fuck? And then as we were like looking at it, thinking, it's been there for so long, then it flew away. But it was there. It was just chilling, watching The Cure with us.
Well, there you go.
He was probably enjoying it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a moth's life, mate.
If you've seen a moth that has changed your life, please email in.
But yeah, fucking Dr. Harrison Gray Dyer, moth expert from the Smithsonian. He was another dude that loved tunnelling, but he seemed to go he was like a different level with it. But in similar circumstances, people eventually got pissed off with him. But there's a little like article that was done about him, which is it's just all you can. It's basically the most of what you can really find out about him. Let me send you the links. You can look. There's like a illustration of what his tunnels look like. I don't know how. I know he's linking the same one again. Sorry. I don't know how accurate the illustration is, but it's interesting to look at nonetheless. It's like a sort of. But he does say that he actually like reinforced it with concrete. So there's an article. One of the oldest hobbies in the world is that as Dr. HG Dyer, International Authority on Moths and Butterflies at the Smithsonian Institution, has found health and recreation in digging an amazing series of tunnels beneath his Washington home. So there is an actual photo as well of like this concrete excavation, but he's like built it with steps and reinforced it along the way. He's completely lined it with concrete, like smoothed it all out. The deepest tunnel, 32 feet down. Deep. What's that in meters, Tom? You're our resident.
32 feet. It's about.
It's at least 1 meter. That.
No, it's about 10.
Yeah, at least 1.
It is at least 1. 32 feet equals 9.75.
You're getting better and better.
When was this? When was he doing this?
It's basically divided by 3. There's like 3 feet in a meter, roughly.
This was in the 30s. Well, the article's from the 1930s. Huh. So he was doing this around then, which is pretty far out, isn't it?
No way is this like representation accurate.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it can't be, can it?
That's a picture, Tom. What do you want?
That's not. That is like when you see like I guess like a diagram of what a tube, like when you go into like a tube station in London, what it actually looks like. Because obviously when you're in it, you don't cut out of it. Where like you're walking through, you don't actually realise how deep you're going and how sort of like a maze it is. And this looks. He didn't dig this.
Yeah, on that note, I did see like part of this, like a thing that were like talking about. Like legendary tunnels, and one of them was about like the London Underground tunnels, because a lot of people don't realise a lot of like.
I love it. I love the London Underground. Mystery tunnels.
Oh yeah, there's loads of mystery tunnels that are no longer open. I'd love to go urban exploring and stuff in there. My dad went on one actually that was like an old post. It's like a tour of an old post office.
Me and Colin did that.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah. You get there's like a post
train
office
in it
complex. Yeah. And. I guess at one point they had a dedicated train line to take the post from somewhere else across different like depots in London.
Yeah, through old train stations and shit, wasn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, so it's like underground, but it's dedicated for the post service. They're like mini trains, and now you can go on there and sit in like this little tiny miniature train. It takes you through all these tunnels, and like it goes off for miles, but obviously you only go on like a certain little track, and you go. Yeah. I don't know how far you go back and then back again, and it connects to the proper underground as well. There's all these connection lines and shit. It's pretty interesting. I know at the end of the day it's just talking about trains and tunnels, but there's so much more that branches off from it. And there's all these like vaults and like passages, and there's like a whole different city underneath London. I think it's
there's loads of abandoned. Well, the thing that we take for granted as well is that in a lot of cities, their like underground network and stuff is they just excavate a big huge hole, lay a thing, lay like a tube system carriage thing, whatever, and then they concrete over it and then build a city or whatever, because like with the foresight of planning, whereas we actually in London Underground dug holes, that they actually tunneled.
Yeah, the city was there long before trains were.
Yeah, and then they decided, we need to go under, ain't working above yet. So like, it's just proper rare. Like the thing I just sent you there, you look at number 9 and there's like an illustration of what like Piccadilly looks like. And it's just fucking bizarre. You don't quite comprehend how odd, and how like weirdly, and that's just in the ground. Like there's just, they've just burrowed fucking holes in the ground.
Yeah, it's nuts. I think it's as well, like what fascinates me as well is, what partly made me get interested in it is the film Creep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's set in the underground, and it goes off into all these passages and stuff. But all those random passages...
Oh, is that with the weird, disused... like, worm things?
No, it's like the woman that falls asleep on the underground and then obviously wakes up, all the trains before the night train, so the station's closed, all the trains are done, and then she starts getting like, hunted by this weird like mutant guy who's been living down in the underground and like kidnapping people and eating them and shit. Oh. But it goes through all these different passages. It's a good film. It's like a classic sort of early 2000s film. But yeah, so that shows like how the sewers and the underground and all these old bunkers all connect, and some bits are not used anymore, but they're still just when you're on the underground, you pass through like abandoned stations. Obviously, you don't see them because there's no lights on and shit. Yeah. And then in those abandoned stations, there's then links to all these old government subway passages and all that.
Sick.
It's mental. There's probably all sorts of shit down there.
You say about like the post one. I bet there's got to be like secret tunnels that for like from number 10 to get out if there's a fucking nuclear threat or something. There's got to be tunnels got to be shit
under
like that.
Whitehall. So Whitehall is like I don't know if it still is, but it was like the government sort of headquarters. It's like the MOD headquarters in London. And there's like a whole series of tunnels under Whitehall that connect to the underground, but there's others that people don't know about. They sort of know that there's a tunnel there, but they don't know where it goes. Yeah. So there must be like a wouldn't surprise me if there's like a dedicated like little train line between number 10 or Buckingham Palace or something that goes out.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
You'd assume, wouldn't you? Like, why the fuck not? But like so talking of like weird tunnels in London, that then led me to like mystery tunnels in Liverpool. So there was a tobacco merchant named Joseph Williamson, and so he's credited with digging these tunnels in Liverpool. So they're like over 200 years old. So this, which is when does the London Underground date back to? I think it's less than that, isn't it?
It's like 80. It's earlier than you think. I think it's like 18.
But it's not as far as
1860 or something. 18,
I mean, it probably would have been like really early lines, basically when trains first started. Right, they probably started trying to dig them underground.
I reckon it's like mid 1800s.
1863, the first thingy. So
look at that. 3 years out, boys.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Nice.
What's that geezer's name? Francis Bourgeois.
Yeah.
George is our resident guessing the date expert. I'm the resident guessing the height expert.
But I guess this is dating back to about early 1800s. Like in the article I read, that they basically, they say that it predates, London Underground tunnels. Mm-hmm. Because it's like a marvel at like the detail that went into it. So this is a good one, because this is a bit of a mystery, George. They don't really know why these tunnels exist. So there's
aliens.
Yeah, well,
Probably.
this tobacco merchant's made, credited with making them, but they're not really sure why. Some people speculate that he was just doing it to give people work. So he was quite well off, and it was like he just wanted to give people something to do and pay them for it.
Just dig a hole.
Just dig a fucking hole. But other people would say, maybe it was for like excavating limestone, I think they say. Or other people say maybe he was a smuggler. If he was a tobacco merchant, maybe he was smuggling shit as well, and they were like something to do with smuggle network. But people have started to uncover him now. So there's like workers, like there'd already been rumors about him and things, and like apparently like years and years ago, like they used to be open, but then like they were kind of used as landfill, and people would chuck shit down them, and then there was people complained about the smell, so they filled them all in. But now like amateur kind of explorers have decided to excavate them, and so there's like a group of just blokes, mostly retired blokes. It says every now and then like some younger blokes will volunteer, and they don't last as long, they get bored, but it's mostly these retired blokes who just get permission, to go like certain depth and excavate a certain amount of it, and they're doing it bit by bit, and but it's like full of old rubbish, but like rubbish now is kind of like artifacts. So they find all these like chamber pots and apparently like poison bottles and things, and they're clearing it all out and keeping the good shit and putting it on display in places. But yeah, they still haven't really quite discovered the full depths of it. There's bits they say like, we'd love to get down this certain tunnel, but you're not allowed to, because then that bit's maybe deemed not to be safe yet. But there's bits of it that they haven't covered where they're like huge, like really ornate brickwork. So it's not like Matey's tunnels, like they're proper tunnels, but they're also like reinforced with brickwork. And people say that he did it, like the guy Joseph Williamson did this so it was reinforced so he could develop property on it. So other people say that it was like they were already tunnels for some other reason, but he built the archways and things. Yeah, the brickwork to make it, to reinforce it, so that because he was a prominent property developer. So they say it was like a land reclamation thing. So yeah, that's quite a good theory, because it definitely, like, there's one picture in this article, it's stunning. I'd love to see down there. It's all lit up and everything. It's a proper. It just looks like you're walking through some brickwork of like a little archway in London or something. It's like a full, maybe.
You don't get that Victorian architecture anymore. Mate.
I know, it's lovely. It's like a proper,
lovely.
Oh yeah.
Tell you what, lovely bit of pointing in that.
There is that, mate. My mate Jack would love that. He would fucking love that.
Yeah.
Bricklayer Jack.
It was weird to think, but one other thing I'd like to see is the sewers in London, because that's all Victorian. The original, because it still uses the old Victorian sewers
with the Fatberg in it.
Yeah, with the Fatberg. Let's call that to episode 1 of the Curios Cast, where it all began. But the reason why they're experiencing things like that is because in London the sewers are all still Victorian for the most part, and I think they're building like a big new super sewer at the moment.
Right.
But all of that is going to be like old brickwork, curved brickwork and stuff, and they use old rivers that flew, like the Fleet Street.
Is like rivers underground,
hidden rivers that once, were just like normal rivers going through medieval London or Victorian London, but now they've routed them underground to then become the sewer. So they use the rivers to then be the sewers. So even that's interesting to me to know that there's this, river. It's probably not like a huge river, but these passages going underneath, North London with mystery rivers in them and stuff, and all these interconnecting chambers, and
it is interesting.
It's not all just like shit concrete. It's all
it's brickworked out.
And so it'd be quite interesting just going through that. Obviously, not if it's full of shit, but
that is interesting. Yeah. There's one, right? This is one you'll fucking love, Jules. So this is something that you can go and visit. I'd love to fucking do this. It's called I don't know how to pronounce it. So Maginot. So it's French. So even Maginot. I imagine.
Maginot Line.
Yeah, the Maginot Line. Yeah, you know about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a relic of World War II. So it was a big. So they referred to it as a military marvel. So it was basically a huge kind of like a underground fort, isn't it? Really, or like tunnel networks that linked forts as like a
like a barrier.
Yeah, like a barrier between the Germany and Belgium border. Oh, sorry, the border with Germany from Belgium to Switzerland to try and stop the Nazis coming through. But what eventually happened was the Nazis went round the other. Yeah, they went round it. Went round the other way and fucked them up. But this whole thing still exists, and you can like tour it. It takes like 2 hours to go around the whole thing. Like it's like proper, like a whole underground thing with like rooms and things. And some of it was sold off, which I find mad. Some of it was sold off to the public. So in theory, there's some guys that own bits of this, and I wonder if they keep it as like a subterranean lair. You know, you can have your welcome to my underground lair.
That'd be a good Grand Designs episode, wouldn't it?
That'd be a sick Grand Designs episode. Yeah. This all made me think as well. There's a fucking, I forgot. I meant to get this up. I'm sure I can find it. There was a fucking awesome YouTube video. A guy builds an underground bunker. Have you guys seen that?
Is it Colin Furze? The guy, is he doing it in his back garden?
Yeah, does it in his back garden.
Yeah, and he's like adding bits on as he goes.
It is Colin Furze, It's fucking amazing. Yeah. He just excavates his whole garden and builds this completely soundproof fucking bunker under there.
He's building a tunnel to connect it from the bunker into his house.
Is he?
Yeah, so he's been like doing bit by bit and like reinforcing it with concrete and then metal and but he makes it, you know, like comfortable. It's not just like a brick.
It's great down there. Yeah, and he fires a flamethrower down there, doesn't he? For some reason, like a flamethrower that he makes on another one of his videos, I guess. Like I only came across him first of all with this, but he has like band practice down there. It's all completely soundproof. He's made it kind of like a apocalypse bunker, isn't he? Where it's like, but yeah, he's got all drum kit down there and shit, and all bands set up, and it would be soundproof. It's underneath the fucking underneath the ground, like as soundproof as you get.
I've been watching because he's been releasing videos like maybe once every couple of months as he's been building this new tunnel and connecting it to his house. And I've been wondering, like, how does he get planning permission from the council? Like, surely he has council planning permission.
I think I remember from the first one that like you don't need planning permission to go down. You need planning permission to go up. But I'm sure there's regulations to do with it not exceeding your boundaries and stuff. But I think he mentions that in the very first one where he builds it is that you don't.
How far down do your boundaries go?
Yeah, I think there's, as long as you don't touch pipes and shit, and I guess you have to I feel like he does get maps to work out to not do that.
But in theory, does your land go to the centre of the earth?
Yeah, I guess. Like,
obviously, it would get thinner and thinner the further down you went, but obviously you're not getting that far. But
yeah, it's one of those ones that they probably never thought to put ownership things of. It would just be like you can't go through a pipe. You know, like you're responsible if you go through a pipe or shit like that. I imagine
below the sewer line. Probably
yeah, but I mean, you could go around pipes and stuff, couldn't you?
Yeah, I guess you could. And there's one that reminds me, brings me back to the Mole Man, actually. He reckons he got down to the water line, which is super impressive. I guess the water line, what does he mean by that? Is that like
the water table?
That's what he said. Yeah, he says the water table. What does that mean?
Isn't that where the water, there's always going to be water at that level. So like whatever.
Yeah, that's just where water sits in the earth.
Wells and shit. Yeah.
So if you're going to extract water, that seems really far down. Did he really get that far down?
It's probably not that far, depending on where you are.
I guess so. I mean, you said he went
in London,
down,
if you're near the river, maybe not. Yeah.
But I mean, it's impressive. I wouldn't be able to dig a hole to the to the water table. And also, if you've dug it to the water table, that means that it would just constantly be flooding. Like you'd have to, if you wanted to use that bit of tunnel, you'd have to just permanently be pumping water out of it.
Yeah,
I remember doing that at like the beach once, when I was like a kid. You know, digging down so far at the beach.
That's what I was about to ask. What's the biggest hole you've dug?
I remember being really young. It's hard to imagine scale now because I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I remember it was definitely big enough that I couldn't get out. Yeah. Which is probably quite dangerous. My parents just like allowed me to do this shit. But it was like it was wide. It was very big, and it went down. And it was like me and like some other kids. We spent all day on the beach, like in the Isle of Wight, I think it was, digging this fucking hole, and we had to like build steps to get. I think my dad helped help build the steps for us to get out. You know, like, and I remember digging down far enough that we hit like water at the bottom, which I guess when you're next to the sea is not that far, but it was definitely big enough that I couldn't climb out.
Yeah, I remember me and my cousins done the same thing. We were smart enough. I think we had some older cousins with us, and like, so we built a slope that kind of takes you into it. So a few of us were just digging down. Like our job was just dig down, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, you throw all the sand to one side, and we kind of used that as like a slope to get in. So it almost like, didn't look as impressive when it like slopes down like that. But again, like, it was to the point where if we hadn't done that slope, I wouldn't have been able to get out. It was too high to climb out of.
Well, mine didn't have a slope, so I think mine was probably more impressive with you.
It probably looked more impressive, but I bet, you know, in reality, very similar.
Me and my cousin dug a big hole in my grand's garden once, and I was impressed with ourselves when my dad had to go around and fill it in because everyone was worried about my gran falling in. You know, like she went out to do a bit of gardening and just fell in and just couldn't get out of this hole.
Yeah. Speaking of falling in holes, right? Around my way at the moment, there's a crisis where people are stealing drain covers. So
this happened in Essex a while back.
Yeah. So
because they're worth money, aren't they?
Yeah, not like manhole covers, but at the side of the road, like in the gutter, there's metal drain covers.
Yeah.
And I know, like, some countries don't have them. They have like storm drain type things, but you've got, you know, we've just got a hole in the ground, which is the drain, and then there's a big metal grate that covers it. Yeah. And people are just driving around in the night and ripping them out the ground and stealing them.
And we say ripping them out the ground because it's just wrought iron. You can just lift them up. It takes a bit of a go, but you can just. They're not glued down. They're not locked down. No. You can just go up and you can just. And I only know this because well, groundworker Steve lifted one up once when we were doing some. I was doing some groundwork with him, and for whatever reason, it was just like you just lift that up.
Yeah. And I saw it on the Facebook.
Imagine you doing groundwork.
Mate, I've done some fucking shit, mate.
He can do groundwork. He does a bit of this, bit of that.
I've done a bit of that, bit of the shoveling, bit of the fucking pneumatic
what
drill.
You need him to.
Yeah.
But I saw it on the local Facebook page. People were posting photos saying, someone's nicked the drain cover. Like, going mental for it. Someone could die. It is true, though. Like, a kid could be, like, walking about and play. Yeah. I used to play out in the street all the time.
Or a dog.
Yeah, dogs, cats, whatever, like, fall in a hole and die. And moths, they'll hopefully be able to get out. But nothing happened down my sort of like immediate road, but a couple of neighbouring roads had their drain covers taken. And then I was driving home the other day, and I didn't know, but at the end of my road, the drain cover had been stolen.
Shit.
And
it's different when it's that close to home.
I know. Well, I saw it, took like a mental note of it, instantly forgot that I'd taken that mental note not to drive in the hole, and I drove in the hole. Because there was a van coming down the other side of the road, so I had to get quite close to the curb, and I was slowly sort of like going by because I was planning to park, and then my front left wheel just bang.
Oh, no.
Straight down in the hole. I was like, fuck. And like, there was a guy in a van looking, and he was like, oof, unlucky, mate. And luckily, I didn't know this until I'd reversed. A good Samaritan had placed some wood like over the top of the hole, and either it had already caved in, or I caved it in by driving over it. So when I reversed, it sort of made like a little ramp, like I managed to reverse out. No damage.
You might not have got out. You might not have got out otherwise. You would have to get like pulled out or something.
Yeah, because the drain hole is pretty much the width of the wheel, like maybe even wider. So the wheel just had gone straight down and just smashed the bottom of the car. But luckily it didn't. There was I looked. There's no damage to the car, and managed to get out. But I think more people have driven over it since because the wood is getting beaten up, and
it's still like that. Well, I thought this. So this happened a while back in like Grays, and it was happening all the time. But then it stopped happening because people were nicking it for scrap metal.
Yeah. So
they would get nicked, and then they would take it because it was a time when you could just take any old scrap metal to a dodgy fucking scrap dealer.
Yeah.
And they would just do it. But then it became a thing where they made like a new law where you had to register, you know, and give your name and address or anything to be able to sell scrap. So to stop this happening, so you had to say where you got it from, or and it would stop the scrap dealer taking any
health and
scrap.
safety gone mad.
Yeah,
But how could they do? Like, surely you just give it to some guy, he gives you cash, and then they just melt it down.
I guess there's still like dodgy geezers doing it, and
gotta be.
unlicensed scrap dealers.
Yeah, but it seemed to stop it because you had to, like, I guess, like going to CEX, and being like, because they still, well, they stopped in it for a while. They would have like their whole fucking shop window would look like the front window of a fucking computer electronics retailer. That they would have. It would be all the fucking products that would be nicked from there. But eventually you had to then, sign up and give your name and address and everything. I imagine there's the same, and it seemed to stop it anyway for a while. But I guess not completely. They found some cunt they'll take it, haven't they? Evidently, or they wouldn't be nicking them.
Yeah, it's. I need to be careful everywhere I go now.
Well, it was happening with road signs. That was it. Like metal road signs were getting nicked. So I remember
yes. So I was talking about this today with Push Up Paul, and he mentioned that near his way there's the signs for the village or the town or whatever, and people were just nicking them straight away.
Yeah, well, they were getting like there's one on the way into Grays, and I think it's still half a sign. It's been like for years, just like the bottom half of it just got nicked. It's like maybe they thought like I won't fuck them completely over. It was like a massive sign. They thought, well, I'll just take the bottom half, or maybe the bottom half was easier to get to. Or something. But, Anyway,
take that into fucking. Like some cash for iron.
Yeah, it's funny to think, isn't it?
Don't know, I found it.
Don't know, mate. Yeah,
it says on it where you got it from.
Yeah. There you go.
That is okay.
Subterranean excavations.
Most notable subterranean excavations. I'm now enlightened. I didn't know any.
Honorary mention to the Peterborough tunnels before we go. So the Peterborough tunnels is a kind of a rumoured tunnel. So this is a bit of a mystery, George.
Oh, I can share a little rumoured tunnel as well.
All right, thank you. Yeah, excellent. I hope you do. This is this is rumoured to exist. There's basically a lady who remembers it. Basically, a woman described as a grandmother claims that she crawled through a tunnel under Peterborough Cathedral as a schoolgirl. The experience was so terrifying that it gave her nightmares for weeks afterwards. So she says, like, 25 of us went down to the tunnel, one at a time.
Only one came back.
None of the teachers came in, which is a bit creepy. It was pitch black, had a stone floor, and was about 2 feet high and 3 feet wide. We crawled along on our hands and knees.
Oh, not even
the girl in front of me stopped and started screaming. She was so scared. The tunnel started in the cathedral and ended there too. We were down there for what seemed like ages.
You were really short, really long.
Yeah, really short. When I eventually got home, I was in tears. So some people say that like there's loads of sort of like anecdotal stories apparently about like tunnels and did they see this tunnel. Some people reckon that they now say like there's rumours of like tunnels that extended from like one bit like for like miles out to another bit, and there's people now that say like that for a start it's physically impossible for it to go that far because of the water or something, But they reckon it's what they're talking about, and there is a thing that is a fact that there's like foundations of like an old like Saxon or now they believe to be Roman church underneath the current cathedral.
Whoa.
So and you can now you're not allowed to go and see it because it's deemed unsafe, but there is a picture in one of these articles that I found of a like the cathedral foundations. I'll try and find it and send it to you, but yeah. But there's still loads of people in Peterborough who claim that there's like way more tunnels than that are undiscovered, and there are more than just this one cathedral tunnel. But
there probably are. Old smugglers' tunnels and all sorts of tunnels in most, especially like old market towns in the UK.
Yeah, there may be.
In Bologna, well, I think most cathedrals, or like most big cathedrals, are built on the site of, or a lot of them are built on the site of either an older church or like a worship site from.
Well, that's what they say
before
about this. That
Christianity.
actually, it turned, because the reason you build a cathedral in a certain place anyway is because it's like the top of the town, or the highest point probably is where you build up. It's normally where the church would be. When you see a church in Old Town, it's at the peak, isn't it? And you may be able to see it from everywhere traditionally. So the Romans would have picked it for the same fucking reason, or.
If you go to Milan, in the cathedral there's a whole level below it. Like you go in and you can go down into this lower level. Obviously, there's the crypt, but then below that, there's the remains of like an old Roman church. But it's crazy how much higher the streets are now compared to Roman times. And you see it everywhere. Like in Bologna, you go into I think it's the library, and there's a whole remains of a Roman village underneath the library that you can go down, and there's like a walkway over it.
That's mad.
But it's crazy how high.
So why is that? Is that just we've just built on top of
years
it?
and years of building over things, and the street level rises. And
why does the street level rise though? Like I don't get that through just.
Don't know. I guess because in Italy, in like Rome and
earthquakes and shit.
major. No, they were using like the old Roman sewers. So I guess they would then just as the city.
But it's not even just here though, like or there. It's also here.
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah.
But I
Like,
don't
even
actually
in
know
Chicago.
why. Because you get it where they sort of excavate an area, or like archaeologists are looking for something, and like 6 feet down they find a building, and then they go 20 feet down, and that's the bottom of the building, and it's like, but it was just buried under dirt and rubble and shit. I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird.
It's classic us just not knowing some shit. There's probably like, a very basic answer to, but yeah.
But so to end on, Rob, I'll share a secret tunnel, secret tunnel rumor that's local to us, right?
Oh, lovely.
That's in Fobbin, so the village I grew up in, Fobbin.
Yeah.
There's it used to be in Fobbin. It's right on the edge of the marshes in Essex, and there used to be a creek that went right up to the bottom of Fobbin Hill. So there used to be like a little dock and a little port, and there was an inn right at the bottom of the hill. Now it's all been dammed, so there's no water that sort of goes up to it. But in the past, 100, 150 years ago, it was like a proper little smuggler's port. So smugglers used to bring all their shit in, and then it used to be smuggled out to different places. But there was always rumours of tunnels from the bottom of Fobbin Hill up to the White Lion pub, which is on the top of the hill. And then
shout out the White Lion, big up Brett.
It's great little pub. But then one link in the White Lion to the church, and there was one.
I have heard this, yeah.
Yeah, and one that went out onto the marshes. So from the church, it went out to some point on the marshes that the smugglers would come up on their ships, unload, and then obviously all the stuff would be brought up into the church or into the churchyard, and then it would be smuggled into the pub and then taken off.
And the church was in on it, obviously, because they're dirty buggers.
Must have been, yeah. But so there's always been this rumour of the one in the pub. And a few years ago, I asked Brett, who's the landlord in the White Lion, I said, is there actually a tunnel down in the cellar? Because supposedly, there's a tunnel. That's where it joins on, is in the beer cellar. And he said, well, I don't know. I'm not too sure. But he did come and have a look. So he took me down into the beer cellar, and it's just like a little room. And he said, it's all been plastered over and bricked over, but the rumour is that on this wall, he showed me the wall, is where the tunnel began. But obviously we can't just go digging and smashing walls down and stuff like that. But apparently it was bricked up in the 50s or the 40s. So there must be something there, because it's just weird that, so many people, because it is like a local rumour, in the village. It's always been the case that there's these tunnels going from a house. There's a house in the village that supposedly connects to it, and then another one that goes to, the bottom of the hill and the church. I just love it. I'd love to find the entrance and go in and maybe there's treasure in there. Maybe there's like 150-year-old smugglers stuff, just sitting there, waiting to be claimed.
Maybe.
Or there's just fuck all.
Yeah,
Probably that one.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So maybe I'll try and get a little bit of footage of the Badger's Dean tunnel, Tom. For as I'm talking about it, you can edit that over. I'll see if Turkish Glenn wants to come for a little old school. It's probably very padlocked up by now, I imagine. Like,
yeah,
back when we were younger, they didn't care so much about a kid getting trapped in a tunnel and dying. But now they're probably...
But they care about a guy
health
in
and
their
safety
young
gone
30s,
mad.
you know, early
Well,
30s,
they don't know that we're going in there enough. There's not like a 30s only padlock that you can like...
Yeah, but if you go in there, they're not... Who's going to tell you off? Come on.
No, I ain't worried about getting told off. I just mean it's probably like very padlocked up now.
Mhm.
Whereas years ago...
It was just open.
It was just open, yeah. It'd been padlocked and cut like regularly. It was one of those. It was like this.
It was probably
fence.
someone in their early 30s cutting it.
It might have been, yeah. There was a fence that I used to go past every day on the way to college, and it was like always a bit of a shitty fence, but there was always a hole in it that you could go through, and we used to go through it and smoke weed, and like they're always trying to like patch this hole up in the fence. And I remember one time there was like a proper fence they made. Like, they changed the fence entirely and put up like the real like tough like metal stuff. I saw them putting it up when I was on my way to college. On my way home there was a hole in the fence. I thought like, so who's doing that?
That's good.
Yeah.
Just the ghost of that tunnel.
Yeah. That wasn't even a tunnel. That was just some random fucking fence. Anyway, that is the Mole Man of Hackney and notable subterranean excavations.
Thanks,
Love
Rob.
it. Thanks, Rob. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Join us next week for Valentine's Day
Woo!
for episode 69.
69.
How's that worked out?
Amazing.
Mr.
Yeah.
Lover. It's like someone's planned it.
Amazing.
Yeah, Valentine. Yeah, 2 years ago when we started this podcast, well, I didn't start it, but when it was started, we had this plan from the very beginning. That's why there was all those
Lawford.
gaps between the early
Yeah,
episodes to try and figure this out, right?
Lawford planned it.
Yeah.
He's
Join
behind it.
us
He's like the Emperor from Star Wars. You know, he's behind it all.
next week. We're going to have some stories about love, romance, cum, and anal, probably.
Lovely.
For episode 69. But this was episode 68 of the Curios Cast.
Peace.
Bye.